The diversified topography of Taiwan granted the island with rich ecosystem and biological species. However, several species and habitats are rapidly disappearing due to climate change and human development. The personnel of Taiwan's national parks, along with scientists and volunteers, have been working diligently to protect the critical ecosystem and habitats. We will tag along and document their endeavors in researching Taiwan's ecosystem and species. A group of mysterious species inhabits the northwest of Xueban National Park. They are the bats of Taiwan. Mr. Chen Jiahong is a technical specialist at Xueban National Park. He and park volunteers have researched the bats of Taiwan for almost a decade. Wow! The two leaf-nosed bats are huge. Good thing I put on 2 layers of gloves. Otherwise, there could be serious bites. This is the largest insectivorous bat in Taiwan. It's called Taiwan Leaf-Nosed Bat. Because of a drastic population decline in recent years, numerous bats have been listed as endangered species. Thus, bats can be critical indicators in ecological monitoring. Here are its nipples. Because the baby bats have grown and the lactation period has ended, its breasts withered, producing no more yellow milk. The breastfeeding produced naked hairs around its nipples. That's why it has not much hair around its nipples. By knowing the changing ecology of bats, better understanding of environmental changes can be achieved. There's only one species of frugivorous bats in Taiwan. The others mainly feed on insects or arthropods. Based on the many insectivorous bats, we may infer that the insect fauna may be richer in the area due to more types of insectivorous bats. Thus, the diversity of vegetation may be higher. We may infer that with more types of bats, its ecosystem may be healthier and more stable. Yushan National Park is another case of using bats as indicator species to monitor environmental changes. Here we are surrounded by the tallest mountains of Taiwan. Among the mountains lies an isolated biological paradise, the Nanxi Forest Trail. The length of this trail is about 34.3 kilometers. It is one of the important medium-altitude ecological protected areas of Taiwan. This area preserves an integral habitat and rich biodiversity. However, in August 2009, continuous torrential rain caused by Typhoon Morakot triggered topographical and landform changes in the Nanzheshien River watershed. We still don't know the exact impacts on the wildlife caused by that devastating typhoon. Since we had some basic data prior to the typhoon, we decided to conduct another survey to compare the current condition of local animals. We might be able to find if the vegetation and wildlife have come back to the previous condition. Professor Liu Jiannan and his research team from National Chiayi University intended to use bats as an indicator species, and the data previously collected by Yushan National Park to study the impact of natural disasters on the local ecosystem. From this tree to here, it is not easy to conduct research in the wild especially on the bats, which have the superpower of supersonic echolocation and fly at night. Why did we choose here? Mainly because there are crags on both sides. For the flying bats, this place appears to be the only passage. With the 2 layers of strings interlaced front and rear, when the bats detect the front strings and try to avoid them, they will eventually bump onto the rear strings and fall into the collector under. As night approaches in the forest, the answer will be revealed. Wow, there are more bats than expected. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. 12 bats, and there are more here. At least one piece of writing document for each sample. Back in the research station, the team is making a thorough documentary of the samples. A female bent-wing bat. Another species is tube-nosed bat. The captured bats will be identified and documented for their species, sex, and reproductive condition. Here are the genitals, a penis. The testicles are swelling. Here are 2 black epididymitis. The team would also like to learn about the home range and the active time of the bats. This anabat detector is a device designed for spotting bats' supersonic detection. The microphone has a frequency range from 10 to 200 kilohertz that can capture high-frequency noises. Whenever a bat flies by, its sound will be recorded without capturing the animal. We can then compare the noise with known frequencies and find out the bat species. From 6 to 8 p.m. is the prime time for bats' activity, regardless of species or quantity. Another prime time is 4 to 6 a.m. When it's warm, there will be another peak time for insect activity before sunrise. Thus, there are 2 peaks for bats' activity, namely after sunset and before sunrise. Through detailed research and investigation, the National Park staff can better understand the environmental changes of the park. Numerous unknown secrets are still hidden in the deep central mountain area of Taiwan. Researchers are heading over for investigation. There is one strong species that attracts the attention of the park rangers. They are the Formosan sambar deer, an endemic subspecies, listed as a protected species. They are the largest herbivore animal in Taiwan. Living in the medium to high altitude mountains, they are known as king of the forest.
We began to conduct investigations on wildlife resources of Taiwan around 30 years ago.
Professor Wang Ying of National Taiwan Normal University is the pioneer of Taiwan's sambar deer research. He and a young researcher, Dr. Yan Shiqing, along with his team, have been researching sambars and their conservation. The sambar population was once drastically reduced due to the fragmentation of habitat and hunting. Its population was recovered with the enforcement of the Wildlife Conservation Act, the ceasing of public lumbering, and the establishment of national parks. To establish management guidelines for the Taiwan sambar population and to learn about its habitat choices, Taroko National Park commissioned the research team of Professor Wang and Dr. Yan to organize expeditions to Chilai Mountain in 2009. The heavy-loaded team members had to traverse mountains on foot for 2 to 3 days to reach the sampling area. They often had to stay at the isolated campsite for 1 to 2 weeks.
Today we'll set up the trapping net and see if we have luck to capture. It will perhaps take time for the sambar to adjust if we catch any.
Capturing a sambar and keeping it unharmed is not easy. With the help of local indigenous people, the team kept practicing to familiarize each step. A non-harmful medicament is applied to the deer.
Today our target's over there. This curious guy is lingering around. Here comes the battle between the human and the deer. Press down the net. Help us to lift it. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay, stop.
The sambar was released on site after going through a series of examination and placing a GPS collar on his neck.
There's a GPS and radio transmitter on the collar to track the deer's whereabouts. We can learn about its home range and whether it migrates according to seasons for habitats. We could learn about its preference of forest and vegetation types, which is critical for understanding its relation to the habitat.
How do you feel about it?
Awesome.
Tears of joy?
I'm not crying. My eyes are sore.
It's very exciting. It's totally different from hunting.
Which one do you prefer?
This gives more sense of accomplishment, particularly the release after capturing. When the deer strolled away, I didn't even feel it was a pity to release it. With the help of the local indigenous people, park rangers, and volunteers, the team successfully captured a sambar and put the collar on for the first time. It's a milestone for Taiwan's sambar tracking research. Because of effective conservation, the survival pressure of sambar has been greatly alleviated, and its population has rapidly increased. Due to its lack of natural enemies, however, the impact of sambar on the environment has started to be revealed.
We hope to understand more about sambar and its actual behavior by using advanced equipment. More understanding of the correlation between its behavior and environment may result in a research breakthrough.
Since 2013, a cross-region integrated research project on Formosan sambar deer has begun. The sampling areas included Taroko, Yushan, and Xueban national parks. The percentage of trees debarked was calculated. The sambar population density in each region was investigated. Professor Ong Guojing of National Pingdong University of Science and Technology has been observing the debarking by sambars in the forest. Debarking may damage forest vegetation. We set up camera traps at several research sites to observe sambar population density. We estimate the population size by identifying individuals before converting the number to population density.
Each time when we visit, we check if the cameras function well. We use the photos for monitoring long-term animal quantity and sambar population fluctuation. This part of the cypress was bonked by sambars. We marked the bonked area with crayons and revisited it monthly to check if there are newly bonked areas or new bonking marks on the existing areas.
However, Further investigation revealed that the increase of population density was not directly correlated to the debarking. Four main hypotheses were proposed. The first was food scarcity, or food resource hypothesis. The second was about nutrition, hypothesizing that barks contain particular nutrients for the deer. The third was digestion hypothesis, stating that barking might promote digestion. The final was self-medication hypothesis, asserting the deer's barking might relate to eliminating internal parasites. We observed that in regions where sambars had high parasite infection or parasite load, higher population size, and where trees were scarce, the debarking frequency became high. Thus, we tend to support the hypothesis that sambars bark to eliminate internal parasites, particularly parasites in the gastrointestinal tract. Additionally, genetics were applied to determine the effects of the past geographic and climate changes on the population distribution of Formosan sambar deer.
DNA is a considerably stable chemical and a genetic substance. Selections, eliminations, and some mutations of DNA are associated with environmental factors. Subsequently, some are kept and some disappear.
Professor Zhu Youtian of National Taiwan University found that the DNA features of sambars in northern and southern Taiwan are remarkably different.
The follow-up questions include the boundary of genetic differentiation and the reasons for the differentiation.
To find the answer, the team collected sambar feces in the 3 national parks and analyzed 877 samples from more than 1,000 samples.
We mapped out the complete gene flow of Formosan sambar deer. The boundary appeared to be lying at the east ridge of Chilai Mountain. It's around the boundary of Mugua River. This is very interesting because it's also the differentiation boundary for Taiwan's striped squirrels and serows.
What was the reason for this? With the help of Professors Liuping Mei and Lin Shufan of the Department of Geosciences, National Taiwan University, a substantial finding was made.
She used pollen sediment to analyze the environmental changes of Taiwan. Her theory is that pollens are extremely stable and resistant to decay. Pollens travel with air and may end up settling in the bottom of the lake. Because lakes experienced little human disturbance, the pollen sediments became robust records to document climate change truthfully. For example, the pollen sediments in the earth can be used to infer whether this area used to be a coniferous forest, a broadleaf forest, or a deciduous broadleafed forest. Such information can reveal the snow lines of Taiwan's mountains as well.
The pollen in lake bottom sediments was used to determine the vegetation distribution in the Ice Age and to locate the snow lines. The team found that the snow lines were lower during the Ice Age. Therefore, numerous enclosed ecological areas were formed in the central mountain range.
Thus, we proposed an assumption. During the Ice Age, sambars migrated from the Asian continent to the now Taiwan area, and then dispersed to the north and to the south. The northbound migrating population went down to a lower altitude area for warmer places. The sambars migrated to the gorge area in the current Taroko National Park area. This might have been because the gorge was a natural haven, and it was lower than the snow line of the last Ice Age. Due to the limited space and food resources around the current Taroko Gorge, when they migrated there, a relatively high selection pressure was experienced. Therefore, differentiation occurred rapidly and population size decreased. In the present interglacial period, the sambar population gradually expands toward high altitude and then gradually toward the south and the west of Xueba National Park. We've uncovered the genetic structure of Formosan sambar deer and the reasons for its separation. Such result can only be achieved through cross-region collaboration among different scientific teams and national parks.
The collective efforts not only contribute to abundant research results, but also serve as a solid foundation for future conservation and research for the national parks. As human development expands, the conservation and research by Taiwan's national parks are racing against time. In particular, the exceptional marine ecosystem of Kending in southern Taiwan. Once a coral researcher from the Great Barrier Reef in Australia expressed his amazement when diving in Kending. He could spot more than 30 species of coral at one dive, whereas in the Great Barrier Reef, he has to dive several times for this many species. Professor Dai Chang Feng of National Taiwan University is a pioneer in studying corals of Kending. He is extremely aware of the crisis that these corals face. The change of corals is drastic. I started doing research in 1979, and a radical change happened between 1985 and 1995. That was the time of Taiwan's rapid economic growth, and so was the tourism of Kending. With the influx of tourists, coastal facilities for accommodation and other developments increased and caused a drastic recession for corals. To protect the delicate undersea creatures and to document them completely, Professor Dai has been conducting Kending's coral diversity research with the support of the national park. Corals include soft corals and stony corals. Data on stony corals are more and richer worldwide, which makes their identification easier. We thus focus mainly on stony corals in the beginning. Recently, we've begun research on soft corals, aiming to determine its taxonomic position in order to understand Kending's coral reef system completely. To conduct a massive examination on soft corals in Kending, the research team had to dive 40 meters under the sea to spot these delicate creatures. There are big and small soft corals. For the small ones, we take the whole unit at sampling. This type of coral does not grow only one unit. It performs vegetative propagation like grasses, so there are other individuals close by. We take one unit from the various individuals for identification. For the big ones, we use a dive knife to cut down a piece of 3 to 5 centimeters. We cut the tissue from top to bottom and put it in a zip bag together with seawater inside. Because we have to do DNA analysis, the samples taken are fixed in alcohol as soon as possible to impede DNA damage. Then it will be transferred to the specimen bottle. To analyze this sample, we have to take it out. In the following steps, we separate the main item, branches, and base of the coral polyp, and then dissolve the tissue to obtain the spicules. The difficulty in this step lies in the great variation in their characters, on which we based our taxonomic work on. Particularly, we have to analyze the many spicules which differ in forms according to its parts. In order to obtain the tiny spicules, repeated careful microscope observation is required. The rare, unseen, and peculiar ones possess great academic value. With care and patience, the team continues the challenging work to preserve innumerable precious assets. However, the protection of this beautiful ocean requires the commitment of even more people. A long-term ecological monitoring project focuses on the coral reef of Kending. Annual investigation and recording is documented. The coral coverage and its health condition are observed and recorded. Observations on the increase of macroalgae and other extraordinary ecological conditions are made as well. The research team of Professor Chen Zhaoluan of Taiwan's Academia Sinica has been devoted to the monitoring and protection of corals for a long time. We employed transect line method for coral coverage. 3 transect lines of 30 meters under the sea was used along with a waterproof camera to take series of pictures of coral reefs within the projection lines of 25 by 25 centimeter frames, one after another. Coral coverage on this transect line was then computed in the lab. Through years of research, the national park can better understand local environmental change. With the national park's promotion, more and more people have devoted themselves to ocean protection in recent years. For the 30 years of my academic career, I've been visiting Kending once every 2 months. Why? Because there are too many mysteries that I don't know yet. We know that coral reefs are tropical rainforests of the sea. With their exceptional biodiversity, they are literally undersea oases. The location of Kending makes the coral diversity extremely rich. Researcher Zhengming Shou of Taiwan's Academia Sinica has devoted himself to marine ecosystem conservation and research. The El Niño of 1994 caused coral bleaching in 55 regions of 35 countries worldwide and caused $200 billion in fishing and other economic losses. The UN established the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. After a series of studies, the world began to value the coral reef and research. Taiwan didn't miss the chance to contribute. We established 32 observation stations. Kending has the most stations. Because of the promotional efforts, the coral reef conservation has gained public support. Volunteers from all over the country come together to join the ocean protection. Annual ocean cleanings attract numerous volunteers.
Please form a group of 8 when diving into the water. We will dive at 2 locations. Safety is above everything else. Please stay close to each other.
I hope people can reduce their garbage and don't litter.
Everyone should come together to protect the environment.
The determination for ocean protection can be seen in Taiwan and elsewhere in the world. International collaboration is the key. The Dongsha Atoll is far from human civilization, but with convenient location, it's a paradise compared to other atolls. Professor Song Ke-yi of National Sun Yat-sen University is in charge of the Dongsha Atoll Research Station project. On this atoll, 400 kilometers away from Taiwan, lies a critical secret to the future of global marine ecosystem conservation.
Atoll is a natural environment and generally far away from the land. Any change that occurs in an atoll is mainly caused by environmental changes. Two main factors dictate atoll environment, including global warming and acidification. The South China Sea, particularly the area close to Dongsha, seems to be okay with the two factors. In other words, the South China Sea is more acid compared to other seas. Conducting research in the area of higher acidity can foretell the destiny of coral reefs of other less acid regions in the acidification era. The large emission of the greenhouse gas carbon dioxide causes the acidification of seawater. Taiwan's National Park Service expects to become a crucial contributor in future global ecosystem monitoring through research conducted at the Dongsha Atoll Research Station. We welcome people from all over the world. I believe there are not many countries that could do this. There are hundreds of atolls in the world, but there is no other research station like this. I believe the Dongsha Atoll Station is going to be significant in scientific history due to its many unique findings. In the past 3 decades, from the mountains to the ocean, countless heroes and heroines of the 9 national parks of Taiwan have tirelessly devoted themselves to research and conservation to make this beautiful island state's ecology and environment understood and well protected. For the long-term protection of the integral ecosystem and unique biodiversity of all national parks, let's come together and protect our environment.